Good morning, and welcome to today's second panel. This panel is called Safety and Sustainability, Safeguarding the Crews, Cargoes, and the Environment. My name is Chris Wiernicki. As you can see, we have a powerhouse panel of industry leaders and very recognizable faces representing ship managers, ship owners, shipping associations, and classification. Let me start by introducing the panel. Stylianos, Technical Director, Columbia Shipmanagement. George Poularas, COO of Enesel. Kostas Karathanos, COO of GasLog. Dimitrios Fafalios, President of INTERCARGO. And Roberto, Cazzulo, Chairman of the IACS Council. What we're going to do this morning is we're going to try to bring all this experience that you see together to talk about, again, the mantra of our industry, which is safety. And of course, the challenge that's in front of all of us is how to deliver sustainable safety gains amidst a constant rapid change. We are driven by a new language of shipping, CO2 reduction per ton mile, or if you convert that to well-to-wake, it's CO2 emissions per megajoule of energy. And safety is one of three dominant boundary conditions. The other two, of course, are availability and affordability, scalability of fuel, and infrastructure. So as we talked about, we are moving in the early innings of a decade of change. We've got a lot going on. Sustainability is going to become a big part of everyone's playbook. And going forward, safety is now going to become an emerging shipping shaper. So, as we talked about in today's regulatory environment, safety is going to become really one of the great interconnectors going forward, both in terms of relationships and, quite frankly, physical systems on ships. And as we know, that safety is also going to have a huge effect in how we address the training and learning of our people and our crews as we move more towards skills and continuous learning. So this morning we're going to connect all these dots together, and we're going to try to provide a picture of how sustainability and safety kind of come together at the deck plate level, focusing on the crew and on the seafarers. We're going to try to answer the questions: what does sustainable safety look like? How do we go about creating the conditions of safety implementation in terms of new technologies, approaches, and approaches to people? And then how do we prepare ourselves for recognizing and managing the unintended safety consequences? So as you can see, we have a lot to talk about, and what I'd like to do is now hear from the panel. So I'd like to start with a question to the entire panel. Stylianos, I'll start with you first. And that question is, how is decarbonization and digitization changing your view and approach to safety? How are you preparing your organization for the future?
Good morning, everyone. First of all, digitalization, the past decades has assisted us a lot with data analytics, data collection. We have created key performance indicators based on which we are able to judge and identify risk behaviors on board our vessels. So digitalization has made an important role in our overall strategy, coming to safety of our people. Regarding decarbonization, decarbonization, it is something that we are working on it for the past decade. It's not something new for us, and still the main issue to our concern is how to identify the gap between where we stand today and where we will be tomorrow, in 10 years from now. You have heard the previous panel talking about single fuels, multi-fuels, ammonia, methanol, all these things. So to identify what you need in terms of safety and crew training and office personnel training, first of all, you need to know where you go. So this is a bit, we are struggling a bit, and we are troubled. What we did as a company in order to be able to cope with all these requirements, Recently, we had a collaboration with SITA. SITA is a global air transport technology company. You all know SITA. We are trying to establish one key solution. We had a collaboration with Adobe for having training for our people on board and ashore. We are trying to have a sustainable culture, safety culture. We are not yet there. At this stage, we are active, but we are not yet there. This is what we do in terms of decarbonization and digitalization.
Great, thank you so much. George, what are you doing at Enesel?
Yeah, technology is transforming our business, both in terms of performance and also risk monitor. There are numerous systems, actually, that provide these innovations that reshape our future and our approach to the safety. To mention a few: collision avoidance aids, real-time performance monitors, event trackers, telemedicine services for the welfare, media servers. All those things actually provide the companies with a very powerful toolkit, not only to predict risks and prevent unsafe actions, but also to provide very solid support for the crew welfare. Today, the vessels are more connected than ever with the office. However, we have to accept that the human behavior is central to all operations and prevails at all conditions. We cannot stop an unsafe action from the office, and we do not want to. But we would like to develop systems that can provide machine barriers in order to complement the human decision-making. So as far as practically possible, because it's not possible at all systems, but as far as practically possible, the last barrier before the accident to be a machine.
Great.
So how we are prepared for this? We have systematically studied these new innovations and new technologies. The last 4 years, we have invested a lot on those. We have implemented new technologies in our fleet. We have established an independent, as a group, an independent division, sustainability division, which is responsible for studying these new technologies and the feasibility of application in our fleet, plus potential new investments. And we have also established a new department in our organizational structure, the fleet performance so-called, for which we monitor day-to-day the fleet performance. As regards, we test those technologies both on board and ashore as a pilot, and then we filter insights, and we provide our crews with training, focused training, because our challenge as a shipping company is basically not to confuse our seafarers. There is an influx of new technology. There are too many things. The data are really big, for which we need tools to clean the data, to refine the data, in order to arrive to actionable insights, which is this is the objective. The training of our crews is basically focused on the distinction between what is the human duty and what is the machine duty.
Great. Thank you, George. Kostas, you're moving a lot of LNG. Tell me a little bit about your playbook at GasLog.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chris. Well, for us, safety, we haven't changed the way we look at safety because it remains a priority that we harm no people or the environment by operating our vessels. But the way we get there has to change, and because both digitalization and decarbonization are two very strong forces that influence the way the shipping industry will operate. So, in that sense, we need to invest heavily on the human factor. We understand that the fortunate coincidence that digital tools are emerging with the need to decarbonize present both opportunities and challenges. And some of these challenges, of course, have to do with the new fuels that we're going to have to handle, the new equipment, and how we make best use of the digital tools at the same time avoiding the threats and challenges that they also present. And as we discussed, the human factor is of paramount importance, and training, awareness of people has to be at the forefront of everybody's agenda, so that we have this sustainable safety that we discuss about today. In GasLog, I mean, we invest in training. We have our own, invested a few years ago in our own training center with simulators and state-of-the-art equipment, and they have the ability to update them, to play various scenarios, update the fuels. Even on cybersecurity, you can run drills, exercises, and so on. So it is important that either in-house or in collaboration with training centers and institutes, you put the training topic very high in the agenda. Otherwise, I think we will fail to retain the safety record that we have enjoyed so far.
Great, thank you. Dimitrios, President of INTERCARGO. So you look at this
Thank
at
you.
a little bit bigger level here. Tell us a little bit about some of the things that you're seeing, some of the trends, some of the insights that you're getting as you take a step back and look at this from a industry association point of view.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you to Capital Link, to Nico, to Olga, to the great Capital Link team. Yes, I mean, the overarching concept is that we cannot decarbonize without safety. Safety will remain paramount. Now, I'm very honored to follow some my eminent co-speakers who are in sectors of the shipping industry which are, I would say, higher technology than ours, and with a very, very different, what I would say, cost structure to the simple low-speed vessels such as bulk carriers, which may be simple and they might be slow speed, but they make up the largest part of the world fleet. There's over 13,000 vessels, and I think we've just gone over the 1 trillion ton mark. So we have to do the best we absolutely can with the tools that we have available, and certainly. If it comes to decarbonization and if it comes to existing vessels, we're gaining knowledge daily on how to operate these existing vessels more efficiently without compromising safety. And of course, IMO has come up with EEXI and CII and SEMP, and we're doing our absolute utmost to, with our members, to comply, and also for their seafarers and our seafarers to fully understand the consequences. Now, digitization is an amazing tool, but it's also a double-edged sword. If you put yourself in the mind of a seafarer on a bulk carrier, and he or she is seeing all this data going ashore, you have to prepare the seafarer to how he or she fits into this digitized future. Digitization assumes that you have a lot of people or a lot of systems ashore that will allow you to utilize that data, and also to utilize that data for the safety of the vessels and for, of course, their better performance. But on the other hand, you have to prepare the seafarers aboard and say that this is for, in a certain way, this is something to assist you, because it's very, very easy for the seafarer to understand that all that data is going ashore, therefore the, let's say, the responsibilities leave my shoulders and go onto the shore. So we have to be very, very careful with digitization. We need our seafarers, for their sakes, to remain as very, very, very good seafarers. And we have to make sure that they are seafarers first and foremost, and that safety is very much in their mind, despite all of that data going ashore. We also as an organization, have to be, we look at the operation of the vessels, but unfortunately the construction of the vessels is also, has an impact on safety. And recently we had a collision between two Capesize bulk, an allision, excuse me, between two Capesize bulk carriers in Australia, one of which was LNG dual fuel vessel, and we were incredibly lucky that we didn't have a major incident, because the one vessel managed to tear open the insulation on the LNG tank of the other vessel. The video footage showed a very brave seafarer on the forecastle of one vessel. If I was that seafarer, I would be as far away from that LNG tank as possible. We have to understand that if for simple fuel oil powered vessels, we have regulations for the protective location of fuel tanks, yet we have very few regulations for the protective location of LNG tanks or methanol tanks or ammonia tanks or something like that. So I think that we have to get real, and I think that we have to be able to combine the design of the vessels and the construction of the vessels with the safe operation of the vessels. And this is very difficult in the bulk carrier industry, where the shipyards tend to take a very much of a production line approach. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Dimitrios. I think your insights on the data challenge is very interesting, because in many ways we have to be careful. Data is like a lot of data is like drinking water out of a fire hose, and data, quite frankly, to be honest with you, is a little bit like sand. It's very plentiful. If you use it effectively, you can create great things. You can create cement and build a lot of things. But if companies aren't using it effectively, it tends to overwhelm them and burden them and bog things down. Roberto, you bring all this together in your role as chairman of IACS, knowing that regulations are becoming global shipping shapers. Classification in many ways is kind of considered the kind of the conscience of the industry in terms of safety. How do you see this? What is IACS doing to help the industry in terms of sustainability and safety, digitization, decarbonization?
Chris, thank you very much. I will echo what you have said in your opening speech and in your introduction now, but trying to address issues that are really at the core of our collective efforts, intending collective efforts within the Association of Classification Societies, and collective efforts that invite ship owners, and who the best than the Greek shipping community, and in another respect, shipbuilders and manufacturers, to contribute to these developments. You know, and everybody knows, that in IACS there has been a big change in the organization recently, in setting up a safe decarbonization panel, unfortunately working on many parallel tasks, because there is not a magic silver bullet for that. And so we have to deal in quite complex work, dealing with methanol, ammonia, hydrogen, batteries, nuclear power, just to mention a few, and trying to contribute to the work of IMO. These couple of weeks, we had classification people contributing to the development of guidelines at the IMO, and also trying to explore solutions like, for instance, nuclear power, that of course are well implemented in the Navy, but they have to be seen also for a potential application in the merchant fleet. And all this respect is to look at safety from a different perspective, because the safety concept is changing. It's not anymore a traditional hull and machinery work for class, or compliance regulations for statutory regulation. It is really, as you said at the introduction, a system approach. It is really to look at the performance of a system and being aware about the complexity of the issues that you have. And for this reason, we established another important panel called Safe Digital Transformation Panel, where we are addressing issues relating to the verification, the assessment of so-called complex system, where when we say complex system is a combination of a hardware, software, and a human element. And in this respect, certainly that will change in aspects like the periodicity of surveys, that will change the way data will be gathered, and we believe that the class surveyors, the class societies, have a technical knowledge to analyze the data and to derive from the data useful information, both from safety point of view, from performance point of view. The last comment I'd like to make is about the human element. We in IACS, we would like to promote with the industries, both shipbuilder and shipping industry, the application of a so-called human-centered approach that basically puts at the beginning of a design process or at the beginning of a development of regulations, the humans at the center of the design. Not putting the human at the end where it is a matter of deciding how many more training courses they have to carry out, how many upskilling they need, how much we have to pay for additional procedure and so on, but consider the human element at the beginning of a design process. And this will change a little bit the way we cooperate each other. We need the ship owners, the ship managers to cooperate with us, class, to cooperate with the designers, to develop better design, and to engineer the protection instead waiting for human element to intervene.
Great. So let me kind of continue, and clearly safety is going to be a team sport going forward, and success is going to be driven by that. But let me ask the ship manager and two other owners here a little bit about a different relationship as you move forward, and where does safety play in that process? You know, we talk a lot about these decarbonization-driven regulations, and that they tend to create new relationships. They tend to tie a lot of things together. You know, CII, as one example, really starts to tie the charter and the owner together moving forward. Let me ask, Stylianos, I'll ask you first. How do you manage the mandatory regulatory requirements of class that Roberto talked about and the voluntary charter requirements, for example, of organizations like RightShip? How do you approach that? And give me some insight relative to that. Are there differences, and more importantly, in your opinion, do they overlap, and are they working together right now?
To be honest, I don't think that there is an overlapping there. I mean, we are talking for two different things. Class is a body that will regulate everything that has to do with the construction, the design, and the safety of a vessel, while RightShip or the other major organizations regulating the industry are vetting instruments that mainly are checking the performance of a vessel and the operations of a vessel. So we are talking for two different things, both of them contributing to the safety at the industry. And let's be honest, the past year, with the digitalization, with the advanced training techniques and procedures that we follow, with all these things that we have established, we've seen that 2023 was, in terms of safety, we had a sharp decrease in losses for the marine industry. I mean, it was the best year for the marine industry. We still remember, 20 years ago, we had 200 losses per year. I mean, where we stand today, you can go to your insurance broker and ask for a discount. I mean, we are doing an excellent job in terms of safety. Now, how we will combine all these things with the new future requirements, sustainability, and decarbonization, as we discussed, this is a different story. And mainly, you need, first of all, the people, the companies, the ship owners, the operators, they need to establish partnerships and collaborations, and they need to see the needs of their fleets, to establish a strategy and start training their personnel on board and shore, depending on the strategy each individual will follow. I mean, each company has a different strategy. Mr. Fafalios said the bulk carriers will go for the biofuels. They are not so technologically advanced like the LNGs, the LPGs, and all these vessels. So the strategy that the company that Mr. Fafalios owns will have to be different than the one we follow, and the training needs depends on the strategy that the company will follow. So that is what we are doing.
Great.
This is where we stand.
Thank you. George, what are your, what's your perspective relative to, let's say, class and organizations like RightShips that vet from the charter point of view? Is there enough transparency to add real value? Do you see them working together as complementary?
Yeah, certainly. One complements the other. Class is dealing with the technical compliance, environmental standards. RightShip actually focuses on identifying the areas that these standards are exceeding. It is more focused on the best practices, with emphasis on operational safety, efficiency, and sustainability. Yeah, I mean, there is certainly an area of overlap, but I believe actually this may be overcome through shared commitment and more transparency in exchanging the information. Data sharing as well. There are areas actually that we can see there is room for further cooperation. For example, innovation. Innovation, the class is one step ahead of everything, but actually sets and assists ship owners making their investments. RightShip, for example, is a marketing tool, is a commercial passport, but it is based on what we have achieved together with the class in order to step in and enhance our profile.
Great. Dimitri, I'm actually going to skip Kostas. I got another question for you, but Dimitri, let me go right into you because you're kind of at ground zero of this.
Thank you, Chris. And I think ground zero is a good place. I think we have to drill down to the basics of classification services and of the services that RightShip provide. Of course, in an ideal world, the requirements should be totally separate, that class requirements and RightShip requirements should be, and they are actually, they're moving that way. They're moving that way. But if we again drill down into the basics, class and statutory rules are generally well developed. We still need to work on consistency, but I think that the class and the statutory rules are well developed. Class is audited, and the training that classification surveyors receive is generally very rigorous and of a very high order. Now, RightShip, as has been said by my previous speakers, by George, by Stylianos, RightShip is concentrating a lot on the operational side, but actually RightShip is trying to reflect charterers' wishes. Now, that, of course, is their prerogative, but on the other hand, it's also RightShip's obligation to manage those wishes. So, for instance, I may have an aspiration that all of my deck piping on my Supramax bulk carrier needs to be made of stainless steel, but the shipyard comes in and manages my expectations, manages my... So in the same way, I think that it's RightShip's obligation to explain to charterers what is and isn't technically and operationally feasible within the bulk carrier segment. Of course, now RightShip is becoming more involved in container ships and also becoming more involved in tankers as well. And again, there is a reflection on the training of the RightShip surveyors compared to those of the class surveyors. There's a basic feeling of who audits RightShip. We know that class has a developed audit process and an audit system. We can't seem to find this clarity in terms of who audits RightShip. But having said that, I think that both class and RightShip have made a positive contribution, a very positive contribution to ship safety. And I think that as we go forward with our new fuels and our new technologies, I think that both of them will be very important. Thank you.
Okay, super. I mean, clearly, safety is a shared responsibility. I'll give you a chance, Roberto, at the end to comment on this. I'm a little bit behind on time. I got one question for Kostas, and then I will go through kind of with some final comments. The question I have, Kostas, for you, especially with the types of ships that you operate, is clearly safety, as we've talked about, is becoming a lot more synonymous with security and reliability. You're seeing much more cyber-enabled physical systems on the vessels, the greater focus we've talked about on data, automation, on software, and of course with software comes cybersecurity. You know, traditionally we've had two safety systems that we can actually touch and feel. One is obviously the hull and the structure, the other is machinery and equipment, but there's now a third safety system that is emerging, which is one that we cannot see and we cannot touch, and that is software, and with that comes cybersecurity. Can you give us a little bit of insights as how GasLog is approaching software systems, cyber-enabled systems, cybersecurity, and from a crew training perspective?
Yep. Thank you, Chris. Like you correctly pointed out, cybersecurity is a major concern of any modern shipping company. We have a lot of, the ships are becoming more and more interconnected with the office, and we have a lot of operational systems now that are interconnected not only with the office, but also with the equipment suppliers that they can do health check and online troubleshooting with these systems. So it's paramount that we make sure we have a safe connection to the vessels and that nobody can interfere and play around with the safety of the vessel. So in that respect, I think every company needs to have a cybersecurity policy that drives and governs how you deal with cybersecurity across the full spectrum of operations. And that should also address crew training. You have your systems, your software security, your firewalls, the physical separation of all the systems on board, which by design you introduce into the vessel, but then how you manage and operate this, how you respond on incidents, this is largely up to your crew training. And you know, there are two, I would categorize training in two basic categories. One is general awareness and familiarization of all the people on board the vessel, so that you have some basic understanding of what the threats are and how they can be a gateway for people to compromise the security and the safety of the vessel. And secondly, is more specific training for users of the system so that they can identify early that the system is malfunctioning or there's something wrong with it, and be able to respond and mitigate the damage. So this is what we're trying to do in GasLog. We have a lot of training modules. Some are e-training, e-learning modules as we call them. Some are more simulation-based training, so we simulate various scenarios of cyber attacks, and we see how our seafarers respond to that. And we also, of course, have regular drills on training where we interact with the vessels and we simulate a cyber attack and then learn. It's an iterative process where we learn, we take the feedback, and we adjust our process and our training needs accordingly. That's how we become.
That's fantastic. Okay, we're about coming to the end of this, so I'm going to start actually now with you, Roberto. Any final thoughts, including any comments you have on RightShip, because we can give you a chance to talk about that relationship relatively quickly on what does sustainable safety look like going forward?
Thank you, Chris. I'll try to be very quick. About the difference between class and vetting, recognizing that class is a life cycle approach, and vetting is more an approach that is intended to see a vessel in operation. We believe that there are useful areas of cooperation, and in order to avoid overlapping, where the criteria used for vetting purposes are in fact mirroring or perhaps asking something more with respect to the issues that are relating to class and statutory regulation. And the fact that INTERCARGO is actively cooperating on the dry bulk management standard and having Dimitrios close to me, I would like then to offer a dialogue with INTERCARGO for IACS to explore these issues, because it might be beneficial for the whole industry. and removing the concerns that were mentioned, that frankly speaking were and are also our major concerns about transparency, consistency, and so on. Going to the second point about your question, safety and security are two imperatives for achieving the sustainability of the maritime transport, especially in this pantarei, in this evolution of the industry in terms of decarbonization and digitalization. And so we have to look at these issues together. For instance, the ownership of the data that are gathered are a matter for the owner to be considered the owner of such an information. And this information may flow to the class, may flow to the charterers, may flow everywhere. It is important that there is a robust way of assessing the data and a transparent way of demonstrating that from the data it is possible to derive useful information. And in this respect, I think IACS and the industry should play a great role working together and assessing that issue.
Great, Roberto. So we're out of time. Dimitri, one quick question, sentence on or thought on what do you think sustainable safety looks like going forward?
Very quickly, we have to go down to the fundamental level and help our people on board to keep their focus on safety, to remain good seafarers, but make them understand that sustainability is very much a part of their lives and our lives. Thank you.
Kostas?
I think, again, the focus should not forget that, keeping our people safe and the environment is of utmost priority. How we're going to do this is stay connected as an industry all together. We learn from each other, and then we train our people with the new challenges that these technologies will bring. That's the way to ensure safety. And for me, safety is part of sustainability. It's one of the pillars of sustainability. You cannot be sustainable in this energy unless you do it safe.
Great. George?
Yeah. We are in the beginning of a very long process. Of course, we're facing a very big change, and every company faces changes differently. However, we shall not see the sustainability as just a regulatory requirement. For many companies, already is a core business, and certainly it's coming. For all companies, must be a core business. We'll see changes. We'll need new vessels, certainly, irrespective of the transitional period, maybe 10 years, maybe more. However, certainly we'll need new vessels. We will see new regulations. More governments and bodies will impose regulations regarding environmental issues. And also the operational transparency, which is no more an optional thing, but is going to be demanded at all levels from stakeholders to public. We also need to modify the training of our seafarers. The training can be more holistic, combining technical skills and also solid sustainability principles. And I believe that the sustainable future of shipping demands except compliance, a lot of other things, like collaboration, like commitment. If we see only through the lens of compliance, we are missing other elements. I believe that the future will reward the companies that are in the front of innovation and leadership.
Great. Stylianos, you got the last word here.
Thank you for this. I will read for you some comments I just made. Sustainable safety, to my opinion, we need to empower individuality and diversity. We need to have interactive training. We need to focus on human factors. We need to educate our people and to make them be part of the process instead of being compliant instruments. And we need to focus on the human element because still decision-making and expertise, it is what rules the operation of the shipping industry today. So this is what sustainable safety is, to my opinion.
Great. Thank you very much. I think you can see that from the panelists kind of a sense of their views and visions. I think we can all agree a couple things going forward. One, safety is going to be a team sport, and it is going to be a shared responsibility. And in fact, a couple of things that I picked up here, and again, I emphasize people are going to be the real heroes of our sustainable safety future. I'm sure we're going to talk a lot about technology, and I talked about it this morning. I think that's all great, but safety is about people. I think what I heard here was that's important because seafarers are going to be the real heroes because, quite frankly, again, technology has no common sense, no instincts, and no sense of humor, and that's going to be really, really important. We also need to continue to prepare our seafarers for two shipping stories, and I'm sure you're going to hear about that. One is shipping for shipping, which is a decarbonization of fuels, but there is another story, which is shipping for the world, as shipping becomes a significant enabler to these emerging ammonia, hydrogen, and carbon economies going forward. So lots of challenges. Give the panel a round of applause. They did a great job. Thank you so much.